have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'd like to say welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You know, it's Thursday. It's June 29th, the year of our Lord 2017, and because it's Thursday, that means that this is, in fact, the aftermath. And because it's the aftermath, that's essentially all the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show, and that for whatever reason I didn't discuss on the Wednesday Sackheads radio show last night. And it also means that we've got some very special stuff coming up for you. One of those is we're going to go someplace new. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a new guest. We're going to have two new guests. I'm not even going to do the intro, all right? I guess you guys expect the intro, but I'm not quite going to do that. I'm going to say tonight in the saloon, we have Dan Butcher, the High Plains pundit. And to that, I can only say good afternoon, good evening, and good to hear you and see you, Dan. How are you, sir? I can hear you quite well. As a matter of fact, wow, that was really hot. Let me turn it down just a bit. Try it now, sir. Now that sounds great. Well, folks, this is new. I have not done this before, and of course the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon is always sort of transmogrifying, shall we say. And so what I'm hoping is that Dan Butcher, the High Plains pundit, will be in the saloon every Thursday as a regular featured guest. And for those of you who don't know, Dan, I could introduce you. I probably couldn't do it as well as you can. I'm going to try. Dan is very important in the media world because Dan does what I would quantify as about 75,000 things at once. He is an absolute stellar media figure. For example, and I'm probably not going to hit the half of it, you can find Dan on High Plains Pundit. You can find Dan on High Plains Talk Radio. You can find Dan on High Plains TV. You can find Dan on Facebook. You can find Dan on Twitter. Welcome, Dan Butcher, the High Plains Pundit. Please tell me, I'm sure I've left something out. Please. Oh my God! Yes, yes. Welcome to the land of Captain Obvious. I got everything else except my own damn network. Holy crap. Boy, I really hope Sean isn't listening right now. Well, I know Clint isn't, but I really hope Sean is not listening right now. Okay, but Dan, other than that massive mistake, did I miss some place where we can find you? Now, I talked about you. No, I didn't speak directly to you, but I talked about you one time, and I've been a blogger since 2004, and I consider it wonderful, incredible output if I put out maybe a post a day, but I want to be consistent. I want to get out at least one post a day. Sometimes if I'm really over the top, I'll have two. And in just an incredible day, I'll have three. Well, I look at your Facebook. I look at High Plains Pundits. I look at shrmedia.com. And you pump out the posts with great, prodigious frequency. And you're in radio, and you produce TV, and you also produce other radio shows, if I'm not mistaken. And you answer all the questions for Sean, and you take care of the SHR Media website. Dan, when do or if do you sleep? That's all I have. Do you sleep? Oh yeah. You know, I wanted to make sure that I had you on tonight and that I attempt, if I say nice, kind, soothing words, to get you on every Thursday because you have a great insight. You've been in the business for a long time. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was in radio myself, but you have been at it consistently much longer than I have. So you have great insight into media itself. You have insight into how the media works, how it functions, and all the various elements that it takes to assemble good radio, good TV, a good newspaper. Well, here's the other thing. Are you not an editor at a newspaper there in Texas? Perfect. Right. Oh, you beat me. Well, yeah, along with everything else. Yeah, 2008 and the crash. Oh, yeah. Yep. Here's how I date myself. When I used to have to do that same thing, yes, I'm very familiar with those, I would play Inagata Davida. That dates me terribly. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Holy crap. Yeah. Perfect. Oh my, that's a story for another time. Holy crap. Well, anyway, we're talking, folks, to Dan Butcher. He is the High Plains pundit. You are out of Texas, and which town or city are you in? Okay, right. Yes. Hey, well, hey, BZ is interesting to pronounce. Besides, I like accents anyway, as you can clearly see. But the reason I wanted to have you on, and the reason that I wanted to see if I could get you to be a a concurrent, a standard weekly contributor, is SHR is changing. And as of July 2nd and July 3rd, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be changing at SHR. So I think it's a wonderful thing that we're linked to someone such as yourself who brings a lot of strong, incredible content. We're linked to you. The radio is changing. We're going to YouTube. Almost all the new hosts are going to YouTube. I mean, things are changing quite a bit. So I have to say, number one, thank you for coming on tonight. And number two, it's an honor to have you on here, and I hope to have you and your contributions every Thursday night. But I wanted to speak sort of an intro kind of thing, the very first show that we talk about. In terms of your background, people would think that I'm a registered Republican. I'm actually an independent. I'm a conservative with some libertarianism thrown in as well. I guess you'd say I'm a small L libertarian because I'm not an open borders guy, and I'm not a smoke all the dope you can and want kind of guy. But I do have some serious libertarian bents to me, so to speak. And the reason I wanted to have you on is because you have some great insight, you have some great media history, and I hope that we continue with this because I'm gonna sort of use you as insight to your portion of the playground, so to speak. So with that said, I have to ask you, because of your lengthy history in media, what the hell is going on with media today? Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, I did too. Yes, it is. Perfect. Right. You beat me to it. Yes. Yes. Yep. Neither was I. Yep. I was a okay, fist bumps for you right there. I was a Ted Cruz guy as well. Yes. It's theater. It's theater. It's theater. I call it theater of the absurd. It's like going to kabuki theater. And one of the reasons that Trump put a stop to that is because all these guys were doing in TV when the cameras were on them is preening and having theater staged in a White House press corps. It's a stage. It's fake. It's fake news and it's fake umbrage. Right. Yes. 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 No, they didn't. I'll tell you what, I got another question. Can you hold on for about another 5 minutes after the break? Because I have a final question for you. Okay. Folks, we are talking to Dan Butcher. He is the High Plains pundit. Come here every Thursday. You're going to hear Dan at the beginning of the show, and I thank him for that ever so kindly. We're going to come right back with Dan Butcher after the break.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome back to the Aftermath. It's Thursday, June 29th, the year of our Lord 2017, and you're in the saloon tonight with Dan Butcher, the High Plains pundit. I hope to have him back every Thursday and have his insight contributed to the show. We are still talking to Dan. Dan, I got to ask you a final question, and I'd like to go over this story because once I saw this, I noticed this is something that not very many people are covering. And as a matter of fact, this came from you. Here's the headline: Potential conflict of interest for acting FBI chief. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is asking the Justice Department to address more revelations of potential conflicts in the FBI's handling of recent politically charged investigations. Grassley's request follows news reports that the acting director engaged in a political campaign and is the subject of an ongoing sex discrimination complaint supported by former Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. In a letter to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, Grassley outlined the various investigations into acting director, FBI Director Andrew McCabe, and any potential conflicts of interest resulting from his role in the FBI probes. But Dan Butcher, this isn't the first time he's been dirty in concert with James Comey. And the reason I read that is because that shows, number one, the content of HP Pundit of the High Plains Pundit and the stuff that you write. And number two, nobody else seems to be covering this, sir. Yes, exactly. Yep. Yes. Oh, I know. Yep. No, I wouldn't call it a shadow government. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a shadow government. It's just the people that were already in place for the past 8 years. But there's another aspect to this that I mentioned that makes, to me, and thank you for pointing this out, makes McCabe complicit, is the fact that with the information that you just gave, with the relationship to the Democrats and his wife and to the Virginia governor, McAuliffe, that's when, I hope you're sitting down, that's when FBI Director James Comey said to his good buddy McCabe, oh, by the way, I find there to be absolutely no conflict of interest here. Nothing to see. This is not the conflict you're looking for. Move on. Exactly. Yes, she does. No. There is an agenda. There is a clear agenda. Now, all next Tuesday on my show, I'm going to go in depth with regard to CNN and whatnot. But I say it's all they are used to having and sitting in the catbird seat for the past 8 years, and now they're getting pushback. And what is happening is this. They're becoming desperate and frustrated. And it's because of these three reasons. They're losing power, control, and money. And like a person that's out in the ocean that's drowning, you give them a life preserver, or you go out there yourself to try to rescue you, they'll attempt to take you down and kill you with them. And it's no more important than that. They're not on November 9th. The Democrats are not on November 9th. What I call the American media maggots are not on November 9th. You are doing the work just as I say on my blog. I'm doing the job the American media maggots won't. You're doing the job. SHR's doing the job. That's why I want to have you on the show. Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it, folks. We have been listening to Dan Butcher. He is the High Plains pundit, live and direct from Texas. Dan, once again, thank you ever so kindly for coming on tonight and giving us some background. I hope to hear you next Thursday. Thank you ever so kindly. Greatly appreciate it. Folks, that was Dan Butcher, the High Plains pundit of High Plains Pundit Everything, basically. Let me see. Time to turn down the microphone because things get really hot when Skype goes away. Dan has a great insight, a great background, a great history. That's why I want to have him on every Thursday night. Now, here's the deal. What I also mentioned is the fact that SHR is changing, and obviously for the better. Things are becoming more competitive all around the nation, in news, in streaming radio, all over the place. The challenges are massive because there is, I exist to be pushback, so to speak, and my blog says the exact same thing. It's my job, and SHR's job, and Dan's job to push back on all the crap that's being foisted upon the American public under the guise of news. Fake news. There's fake news. There's fake law. I wanted to have Dan on because Dan provides an excellent insight, and I wanted to introduce him to everybody in SHR, everybody that listens to SHR. He's got a great perspective, and that's why I wanted to have him on. Also, coming on later, at the top of the hour, 9 o'clock my time, midnight on the East Coast, and 17:23 and 175 seconds in Bolivia, we will have Melanie Collette on. She's also a member of the SHR Media Network, and I want people to get familiar with Melanie as well, to know about her background, her show, what she specializes in. So, at the top of the hour, we're going to be talking to Melanie Collette. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great, grand time. One final thing that was in the article today about McCabe that Dan had written under High Plains Pundit. The conflict is clear. The conflict is ongoing. Dan wrote, McCabe is also reportedly the subject of an equal employment opportunity complaint for alleged gender discrimination dating back to 2014. Here's the link. Here's the conflict. In that case, Michael Flynn, reportedly submitted a letter of support on behalf of a female FBI agent who reported the discrimination. Despite Flynn's role in the open complaint against McCabe, McCabe still worked on the FBI's investigation into Flynn's communications with Russian officials. Conflict. His wife's conflict. $700,000. Democrats. Hillary Clinton, James Comey saying that's all well and good. There's nothing here. There is no conflict whatsoever. That's why we're going to keep on all of this stuff. I'm not giving up. No one else is giving up. SHR is pushback. SHR is where you're going to find all the good stuff that you need to discover. And, of course, we're going to be at Freedom Fest. Like I say, Melanie Collette at the top of the hour. One other thing that I wanted to talk to folks about is Seattle. There's a lot of stuff going on with Seattle these days. I'm going to get into it a little bit later, probably on Tuesday, in concert with CNN. But Seattle's having an issue with the minimum wage. You'll hear about that later. Seattle also had a gun tax, and they enacted it so that there would be less crime, correct? Because if Seattle enacts a gun tax, then logically that would mean that there will be less crime. Is that correct or not?
And a judge upholds Seattle's so-called gun violence tax, the measure adding $25 to the price of each firearm sold in the city, plus 2 or 5 cents per round of ammunition. The Second Amendment Foundation promises an appeal. Founder Alan Gottlieb says, quote, "It is unconscionable for Mayor Ed Murray and the city council to codify what amounts to social bigotry against firearms retailers and their customers." Joining us now is Tucker Carlson, editor of the Daily Caller, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, and of course Fox News contributor. Tucker, great to see you.
Hey, good morning, Abby.
So we heard social bigotry there from Alan Gottlieb. Is that something you would agree with?
Well, I think it's just dumb. I mean, there's no social scientist or criminologist in the world who would say this is going to reduce gun violence. It's a tax against all gun buyers and gun retailers when anyone who studies it knows a very small group of people is responsible for the overwhelming majority of gun violence in the country. But even from an epidemiological point of view, it doesn't make sense. Consider car accidents, which kill about 3 times more people than gun murders do. Would it make sense to increase the tax on car sales or require a background check to buy one or ban private sales of vehicles or to limit the number of gallons of gasoline you could put in your car? Of course not.
Well, yes, it would if you're a leftist, because if you remember, one of the answers that people in the European Union were saying with regard to Muslims, and specifically Muslims driving into crowds and killing people, was to limit vehicles into cities. That's insanity. Now, this video, this is interesting, and the reason I'm playing this video is because obviously it's Tucker Carlson, and I enjoy listening to what he has to say, but this is just after the tax occurred in 2015. Now, we're going to hear him weigh in a little bit later after the tax occurred, because Seattle is saying, oh, with the gun tax up, there's going to be fewer guns on the street and crime will go down, right? Because if you're an emo leftist, that's how you think.
You look at the populations that are most likely to cause car accidents. You look at drunk driving. You look at young drivers. I mean, this is not actually an answer to gun violence. It's a way of disarming law-abiding citizens, obviously, and they're not even pretending otherwise. They can't explain how this is going to make Seattle safer. It won't, and they know it.
Well,
and it's because all leftists have is the emotive argument. It's not even an argument. It's an attempted tug on your heartstrings if you're stupid enough to allow that to occur.
What the city is arguing is this raise in taxes is going to raise, what, about $500,000 they're going to put towards offsetting the cost of gun violence. And just to give people a sense, the direct medical costs of treating about 250 gunshot victims last year in Seattle totaled more than $17 million. Taxpayers ended up paying for more than $12 million of that. So do they have a point here in saying, look, the tax is going to come from somewhere. We might as well make those that are buying guns pay for that?
Well, it's ludicrous. I mean, I don't know. What's the cost?
Hello. Unintended consequences, table for one, or unintended consequences, table for the population of Seattle.
Cost of treating AIDS in Seattle. We're going to, tax everyone who uses intravenous drugs or, perform certain kinds of sex acts. I mean, it's insane. First of all, you don't ever blame the tool. You take a look at the person who commits the crime using the tool.
Oh, no, not if you're a leftist. No. It's got to be the tool, because that you can readily proscribe. You can't and shouldn't proscribe people.
And you consider his motive. in a way, in a way that's useful to stopping him from doing it again. Your house falls down, you don't ban hammer sales because it was constructed with hammers and nails, right? I mean, again, there's no actual scientific justification for this, and that's puzzling given that the left is forever lecturing the rest of us about science and how the right doesn't believe in science or gravity or photosynthesis or global warming or whatever. And yet, time after time, their gun control proposals are not rooted in social science. And by the way, there's a lot of it. I wrote a book on this once. There's a lot of study that has been done on this question, longitudinal studies over decades about why people commit gun violence, and they don't make reference to any of it. It's just guns are bad. I mean, it's overwhelmingly emotional and therefore not useful. And by the way, it's fine.
It's overwhelmingly emotional and therefore not useful. Thank you. Correct.
It's emotional. It is emotional. Yes. And Tucker, there are a lot of people, of course, that are wanting more gun reform. So you wonder if this is going to be an experiment in Seattle that plays out elsewhere around the country. But Tucker Carlson, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
At 28 past the hour, the White House facing strong criticism.
Yeah, enough of you. But here's the article from Breitbart.com, because now there were consequences that were documented from this. The headline, Seattle gun tax failure, firearm sales plummet, violence spikes after law passes. When the city of Seattle passed a tax on all gun sales and ammunition as well, of course, the measure was hailed as a way to defray the rising costs of gun violence. But since the tax took effect, those costs have only risen as gun violence in the city has surged. And the tax has apparently brought in much less than city leaders projected it would. Again, if you're a logical thinking human being, can you say that you did not see this coming? And the answer is yes. Leftists did not see that coming. How much data do you need? Asked Dave Workman, senior editor of thegunmag.com and member of the Second Amendment Foundation. The data says the law has failed to prevent what they promised it would prevent. Okay, all right. So, come on. Let's be honest, because the leftists, they certainly won't. First and foremost, this is another leftist assault on the Second Amendment, which leftists despise, along with other aspects of the Bill of Rights as well, to include the First Amendment. So this was how it was portrayed in 2015 with Tucker Carlson. And that's what I had played for you right there. But where's the violence? The violence, as we've discussed, is on behalf of the leftists. And you have to look and examine all the host of violent events that have been occurring in American universities this year and last year, where speakers were threatened, they were actually struck, either physically removed or had their presentations absolutely canceled because of other leftist violence and whatnot. This was Berkeley.
We have the right to defend ourselves. And so this, shutting down Milo Yiannopoulos and doing whatever is necessary to do that, is our right to self-defense.
Shutting down your free speech is a right to self-defense. Perfect. Now, perhaps you're asking yourself, BZ, what's the connection? What's the nexus here? Why? All of a sudden, we are talking about Seattle and the gun tax and the Second Amendment, and now you're talking about violence here. That's because this is an issue of freedom of speech. This is what the leftists think is wonderful.
It's
violence.
Just absolutely horrific what's going on. It's horrible. It's disgusting what's going on right now. And it's one thing to protest someone's right to come here and speak, but it's another thing to create this much amount of destruction and violence and hurt and harm to other people.
So you know what that nexus is.
I just came to see if I could get into the Milo event. I support free speech. It's Brown Plaza, sort of birthplace of campus free speech. So I decided to come to see if I could get in, see what he had to say, and see the marketplace of free speech ideas come about. And it just got shut down by a bunch of people in black bloc, protester masks.
And those are the people, that's why this is rather glorious. Those are the people that are in masks, that don't want to be identified at all. They call themselves Antifa, and they are absolute anarchists. Now, I said that I had more of Tucker Carlson, and I do. I might play that a little bit later. We're at the top of the hour. We're going to go and hit a break, and then we're going to have Melanie Collette on, who's a member of the SHR Media Network, and we're going to talk about her show and why you, as a matter of fact, need to listen to her show, because she's got excellent insight of a different nature that's important to hear. Come right back.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying coffee was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And, of course, we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You are live and direct in the saloon. We're in the SHR Media Network studios. We're maybe 2 miles or so from the actual Bill Mill, the belly of the beast. in leftist central Fornicalia, and I'm broadcasting live and direct to you here behind enemy lines in occupied Fornicalia. And of course, as I want to say, we are doing the job the American media maggots won't, because that's why you tune in to us. You expect that that's going to be coming. We're going to be having Melanie Collette come in, and she should be speaking to us at the top of the hour. We were talking about gun control. We were talking about gun taxes, taxes on guns in the city of Seattle, Washington. We heard from Tucker Carlson, who weighed in as that right after that tax was levied. And then there were some unintended consequences that were occurring that leftists purposely, I submit, did not, I don't think they can see. Now, let's listen to Tucker Carlson speak to an anti-gun activist, shall we say. And let's listen to the tete-a-tete between the two of them, if we shall.
Council of Seattle passed what it called a gun violence tax. The tax imposed a $25 levy on every gun purchased in the city, along with a 5-cent tax on every individual round of ammunition. It worked in one way. A lot of gun sellers have fled the city for the suburbs. People lost their jobs. Did it work? In the intended way. It was designed to make Seattle safer.
Tell you what, folks, we just had Melanie call in, and let's put Tucker Carlson aside for a moment, shall we? Let's put Tucker Carlson to bed, just as the sackheads attempt to put sleeplessness to bed, shall we say. On the line, just to make sure, do I have Melanie Collette of Money Talk with Melanie? Hey, outstanding. I am absolutely superb. Thank you ever so much for calling in. Don't know if you happened to hear earlier, I was speaking to Dan Butcher, the High Plains pundit, and the reason that I wanted to have you on is because I wanted to introduce you to everybody here in SHR Media, in the SHR Media Network. Because the media network is changing, SHR is changing July 2nd, July 3rd. There's a whole bunch of new stuff going on. I haven't spoken to you yet, but I want people to get familiar with you. And I wanted to speak to you tonight about your background. And then I have some other things that I'd like to chat with you about that have to do with finances and budget and perhaps just a bit of the U.S. government. Before we go there, though, when I speak to somebody for the first time here in the saloon, I like to have them chat with me about the background and whatnot. So I have to ask you, you're a conservative. You're a black conservative. How did you find your way over to conservatism? I have my story. I'm sure you have a story. I'd love to hear it. Okay. Okay. Now you mentioned being an undergraduate. Can you tell us a little bit about? Obviously, you're a rather educated individual. Can you tell us what your background is and what you did in college and university? Ooh. So sooner rather than later, we're going to have to call you Doctor. We should call you Doctor. Yes, there she is. Oh. Oh, that's sad. I was looking forward to call. Well, maybe I'll still call you Doctor. Anyway, on your show, you're on Spreaker. You're on a whole bunch of places. We'll get to that in just a moment. But it says regarding your show, Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guests' interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their field. Melanie has been an educator for many years. Courses she teaches, now this is an interesting point because I'm going to ask you about this, include financial literacy, accounting, sports marketing, and computer applications. She is currently an adjunct professor at Rowan University. So, you're an instructor as well. What? Holy moly! Okay, Melanie, what is it that you don't do? Because all right, because clearly, I think if there's one label that we can put on you, it's underachiever. Okay, well, here's the part where one of the reasons for getting you on tonight is I wanted to make sure that I give you an opportunity to promote yourself as well, because people need to know about you and what it is that you offer. So can you tell the folks where you can be heard, where you can be read, social media, books, articles, anything like that? Everybody wants to hear where you can be heard and found. Okay. Now, the other question that I have for you is, okay, you indicated that's kind of how you tended to be a conservative individual. But what was it that particularly motivated you to get into the financial aspect of business, or of business at all, for that matter? What intrigued you about that? Okay. Well, hey, weren't we all? In terms of financial things, and I'd like to get into some of the people that you've had on your show, but in terms of financial aspects, is there one particular thing that is sort of your favorite topic to talk about, or that you think people really need to know about? You've had some really incredible guests on your show, and I'd like to ask you about some of the people that you've had on. But if I'm not mistaken, you have had Fox News's Ebony Williams on your show as well, have you not? Oh, please. Oh, please. You bet. Okay. Okay. Cool. Uh-huh. Whoa. Wow. Yeah. 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 That's an incredible grab, so to speak. But it's all about how you know, how you meet them, and somebody was smiling down upon you, I'd say, at that particular time. Right. Yep. I would absolutely agree. Okay, besides Ebony Williams, I know you've had an absolute host of people on your show. Who are some of the folks that you've had besides her? Oh, I'd love to talk to him. Yep. Aha. Okay. Oh. Well, you may be a nerd, but you're one of the most highly educated nerds that I can possibly think of. Now, for all the people also that I speak to the first time, because I'd like to, well, let me ask you this. I won't just assume. Let me ask you, would it be possible that we could have you back in the saloon sometime in the not too terribly distant future? Okay. Well, that's okay. That's another thing. You are such a trooper because you're on the East Coast and it's like after midnight now. So, number one, God bless you. Thank you very much for agreeing to be here because in terms of nappy buys, oh, yeah, it's after midnight back there. So, thank you ever so kindly for that. Thank you. Thank you ever so kindly. When I have people for the first time basically in the saloon, I always ask them what I consider to be a really important question that I find results in answers that it just really enlightened me, and that's this. And obviously, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. What would you consider to have been some of the real pivotal points in your life where perhaps your life is going in one particular direction and something came up and it was a massive, either a directional change or a paradigm shift or a thought shift or a philosophy shift? For me, for example, one was when I decided to go into law enforcement and how it was that I got there. Another one was what were the motivating factors for me to become a conservative? Because, oh my, in the 60s and the 70s, I was a real dyed-in-the-wool leftist. And then there was another situation that I got into, a critical incident in a shooting. That changed my perspective on a lot of things. So those were clearly my pivotal points where I was going in one particular direction, just fat and happy. And life came up and slapped me right in the face, and I came to all sorts of various epiphanies. Now, in terms of you, were there any real, what you would consider pivotal points in your life? Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Were there any other pivotal points in your life other than that, and that's obviously the most recent one that occurred, where you were just sort of floating along and something just incredible happened in your life that moved you in another direction? Okay, or we could put it this way: was there a particular incident where that you encountered where you were just given insight that you didn't have before, where you became enlightened in some fashion, maybe with a particular piece of honesty, clarity, something happened like that in your life. There we go. Nice. Okay. Uh-oh. Wow. Now, that's a show in and of itself, just for that. Folks, we're listening to Melanie Collette. She is the host of a very own radio show, Money Talk with Melanie. We're going to take a break of about 3 or 4 minutes or so, and we're going to come back and continue talking to Melanie Collette, whom I thank ever so kindly for being here in the Saloon tonight. Folks, come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I have to say welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It is Thursday, June 29th, the year of our Lord 2017, and we are talking to Melanie Collette. She's the host and serious underachiever of anything and everything in life. She is going to pick up a doctorate in the not too terribly distant future. And I was reading in chat, Melanie, I was going to ask you a question, then I got delayed by chat. And darn me for not mentioning all the people in chat. There's Bigfoot in chat, Mary Brockman is in chat, Dan Butcher is in chat, Dave Milner is in chat, and Melanie Collette is also in chat. But in the chat room, Dave Milner wrote that you managed a McDonald's at the age of 16. That's a story, and I've got to hear it. Okay. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You were addressing also a particular issue that I'm going to ask you about now, just before we went to the break. You mentioned politics, and you mentioned that you, the way you mentioned it, I have to ask you, are you thinking about anything political yourself? Right. Okay. Okay. Now, maybe some other people know, but I do not. Obviously, you're on the East Coast. In what city or town are you? Wow, okay. Didn't see that coming. Now, we talked about your background. We talked about your financial wherewithal. Now, what I'd like to do is ask you, maybe tickle your brain about some things that have to do with the U.S. and the budget and things of a fiscal nature. One of the first things that I knew that I wanted to ask you, because of your background and your education, your training, your experience, what is it that you happen to think with regard to the push by leftists for, say, a $15 an hour living minimum wage? Yes. Yes. People are making that a particular issue, and you mentioned automation, for example, and as a result of that, we're seeing a lot more kiosks say the first thing that I think of, and I think the first thing that most people think of in terms of a minimum wage or a living wage is the fast food industry. And it seems to me that these people are pushing for that at absolutely the wrong time in the history of America right now. Oh, yes, you're right. Yep. Yep. No, and I'm reading chat here, and you say, you know the secret behind McDonald's. Okay. Oh, okay, I don't know the secret about McDonald's fries. Can you reveal it? Oh, really? Okay. Literally did not see that coming. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to ask. I saw it in chat and people responding to it, and I thought, okay, well, all right, I need to know what the secret of McDonald's is. Now, we were talking, by the way, we're speaking to Melanie Collette, host of her own radio show on the SHR Media Network, Money Talk with Melanie. And we were speaking about the minimum wage, and if we're going to go there, one of the other things I was thinking is, I'll wager you probably have some thoughts and opinions that regarding the movement that's beginning in Europe right now, and perhaps with some economists in terms of, what do they call it, a universal wage? I think it's been around for a while, but yes, he most recently has been talking about it. And then, of course, people back in the EU have brought it back up again, particularly those in Sweden and Norway. You're right, it doesn't. Talking to you is absolutely refreshing. It is literally like turning your pillow upside down and burying your face in the cool side of your pillow. It's great to have someone be so absolutely frank about the financial world. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions. We've got, I think we got about 10, 12 minutes or so. There's another article that just came out from CNSnews.com. And the headline is this. It says CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, income taxes up 9.5% next year, but debt climbs more than $1 trillion. And they say this: unless current tax laws are changed, federal individual income tax collections will increase by 9.5% in fiscal year 2018, which begins on October 1st, according to data released today by the Congressional Budget Office. So, with that in mind, do you have any particular thoughts with regard to current tax laws and or tax breaks, etc., that the Trump administration is considering? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. Here were some of the things that Trump was advocating, and I'd like your thoughts and opinions on them. One of the first was he was advocating eliminating most federal income tax deductions and loopholes for the very rich. Now, the Gallup poll found that 63% of American adults favored this. What's your thoughts about eliminating most federal tax deductions and loopholes? Correct. Yes. No, not really. Exactly. A Yes. Yes. Free money. Woohoo. Yeah, investing. Yeah, exactly. Reinvesting it in themselves, for example. Now, here's another proposal. Here's another proposal that he had. He wanted to simplify the federal tax code, and he wanted to reduce, I think there's 7 tax brackets right now, and he wanted to reduce them to 4. On its face, it sounds admirable. Is it feasible? Right. Oh yeah, enrolled agents, CPAs ad nauseum. Exactly. It's an industry. There are 2 other questions that I'd like to ask. We've got about maybe 4 more minutes left or so, right around in there. One of them involves what I wish, and I'm just sort of whistling past the graveyard with this one, but I'd be curious what you think. I believe fervently that Americans should be made to pay quarterlies just like businesses. Once Americans had to pay their quarterlies, there would be a tax revolution, the likes of which this nation and probably no nation on earth will ever have seen. Businesses must do it. Individuals don't. I would love to see something like that happen, because then the blinders would be ripped off the public. Really? Didn't see that coming. Didn't see that coming at all. Hey, one final question for you. Trump also indicated that he wanted to plan to try to eliminate the estate tax paid when somebody dies. Again, America says, woohoo, yes, we love it. Again, is that feasible? Oh, yes. Yep. Yes. I would absolutely agree. Okay, we're going to have to jam here. I have to say, number one, thank you very, very much for coming in. I'd love to have you back on the show in the saloon. Tell people again to remind folks where you can be found and where you can be heard. Ooh. Perfect. Money Talk with Melanie. You got to be there. Aloha. Melanie, thank you ever so kindly for being in here. Folks, unfortunately, it's time for old Zeppas to take off. And thank you for listening. And, Melanie, hope to have you back.
We'll meet again. Don't know when, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
This was a great night. This was a grand night. I got to speak to Dan Butcher, the High Plains pundit. I got to speak to Melanie Colette of Money Talk with Melanie. It was a great show, and I had an absolute great time. Thank you ever so kindly for listening to me tonight in the saloon, right here on the SHR Media Network. You can find me on Twitter at BZEP, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. And I have to say thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, because you know what I'm going to be doing with them in less than an hour. So, folks, God bless. Take care. Be safe. Thanks for listening. Come back next Tuesday.
Quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.